What's up, jerks?
Manning retired.
Which one?
Both.
I like kickers.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday to all you out there, all you fantasy fans. Oh, my goodness. Did you have Gronk out there? Did you have Tom Brady?
I wish.
It wasn't me. The Doc here with my boy, Phil the Thriller Pamonte.
What up, podcast world?
It's all good, man. We're doing another episode of the Fantasy Nerds because Jason the King Jarvie, he Hollywooded us, man. He's like, well, can't really do the podcast. I got to go to, Detroit Sports 105.1 and really just drop a 2-hour radio show with the king of fantasy around town, Dennis Farrell. I'm like, what? No, come do the podcast.
Can't be mad at him, though.
No, I'm not mad at him at all. Jason Jarvie is the man, and he does a lot of great things for us here at the Detroit Sports Podcast, and he's not able to be with us because the show's doing so well, probably because we're pushing him so much here from the podcast. I got 29,000 Twitter followers.
Well, that helps.
They're asking him to do 2 shows a week now. Dang.
Can't beat that.
Fantasy Sideline Show. Definitely check out Jason the King Jarvie and Dennis Farrell. Great 2 hours of radio every single time they drop a Fantasy Sideline Show, and Sunday mornings 8 to 10. But my goodness, I wish 1 week, Phil, 1 week I would be smart enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to combo Tom Brady with Gronkowski. I think a lot of people who have that combo could potentially win their league already just with those two, with the production they had last night. It's unbelievable.
It's very possible. If you look at their stats over they've been together for 60-some games, they put up 56 touchdowns. Their second all-time quarterback to tight end touchdown combo. So it's pretty scary, especially when they average probably 3. They're averaging just a little under 1 right now, and Gronk missed all that time the last couple years.
For me personally, that game, it was fun to watch because in our league, you and I are in a league together.
Yeah.
I have Big Ben paired up with Antonio Brown, and it was so slow, but he was getting the ball slow and steady, but no touchdown production till the end. I'm like, oh, nice.
That one was a killer. That swung whole bunches of action on the LV.
Yeah, I got 30 points now. I'm up 30-12 because my opponent, I'm playing Kurt. Shout out to Kurt. He had D'Angelo Williams, and my wife, it was so fun to watch because my wife has D'Angelo Williams, and she's like, why? Why is he getting all the action? And then in first and second down, they take him out. He was run. I told him, listen, the dude can't run play after play. He was a workhorse last night, and she was so mad. I loved it. She was like, no. That's what I don't like about fantasy is when you got your guy, you're rooting for him, you're following him, he's getting yards, point after point every time he gets a carry, and then it's time for the money,
and then they pull him,
and then he's been overused, and they get another guy in for the touchdown. I hate that.
Well, it killed me to watch them in. They got in a couple goal line situations where they ran the ball 3 times, and they've got one of the, I think, of pretty undervalued tight end right now in Heath Miller, because Pittsburgh's going to be being behind a lot because their defense is young, so you want to be throwing the ball in at least one of those before third down. You get to third. If you run the ball twice on first and second down, you're pretty much setting up for they're coming out throwing the ball here. So, D'Angelo looked great without Pouncey in at center. Their offensive line looked really, really stellar, especially the way that they were moving the ball. So,
and with the combination of D'Angelo Williams and Le'Veon Bell when he returns, that run game could look good. D'Angelo cut down 15 pounds. And they were saying on the broadcast, they were emphasizing, wow, they've never seen a running back get to the sideline like that. And he was so fast that he cut to the sideline, got a lot of extra yards.
It's scary if they can learn to spell those two properly. That could be pretty dangerous. It's all about what their defense can do for them, though.
Now it's week 1. How are you looking in the league? Which league are you in that you're paying attention to the most, that you really want to win?
Well, I pay attention to all of them the most, but there's this one league I've been in for going on 10 years now that I've never won it, and I always get to the Toilet Bowl championship and win that to break even for the year, but the one league I'm in, it's with my buddy Jay. Jay's in our league as well. Mm-hmm. That's the league that I want to win. I got real quick lineup: Tannehill, DeMarco Murray, Jeremy Hill, Odell Beckham, Jordan Matthews, Amari Cooper. My tight end's Jordan Reed. And then I got Tucker and Miami as my D. So I've got a pretty decent lineup. Plus I got Jonathan Stewart as my backup running back. So team's okay, but I watch it all. like I said, I'm in 4 leagues. It makes it a little fun to, I don't have to sit there and root for everybody because I got so many different players. So.
Yeah, now in this episode of Fantasy Nerds, we're going to look at some projections in terms of stardom, situm. We're going to talk about each of our leagues that we're in, that we're invested in, and we'll get a chance to kind of break it down, have a little bit of fun, and help anyone out there to put together the best roster. Potentially, if you're in a one-day league, maybe some guys that we can potentially tell you about that will help you. Maybe a listener will be one of the winners of the $2 million. You doing this one-day thing?
Yeah, I did this one. I'm really kicking myself in the ass because I was one of those people that I've been keeping an eye on everything over the preseason, and I said from the beginning that Pittsburgh's defense is going to be in bad shape, so there's going to be a lot of points scored in all those games. And, of course, I'm too worried about getting Odell Beckham and Julio Jones on my team that I forget about, taking Gronk at tight end. So
now I got a question. I've never done a one-day league yet. I definitely know about FanDuel and DraftKings, and there's a lot of other ones, too, that are popping up because the business is just
it's
booming.
Yeah.
So do you think you can put together a team with Tom Brady and Gronkowski with the salary cap and still be competitive with other guys?
Well,
first of all, you're going to break it down for me. What is the salary cap and what number value you think were Tom Brady and Gronk for yesterday?
Okay, well, the salary cap, and I go through DraftKings, but the salary cap's $55,000. Okay, which is for 9 guys, it's pretty tight. You're looking at just over about $5,600 a guy. So Brady and Gronk are in the top tier of each of their.
So would they be like what, 10,000?
No, the highest. Well, I got Julio Jones and Odell Beckham for 9,300 and 9,200 respectively. Now the tight ends I didn't pay too much attention to, but it's not as drastic. So you can work. Brady's probably about 7,500. So you get him, and I'm guessing Gronk's got to be at least 5,000. So if he might even be more. I mean, I'm not positive, but so absolutely. I mean, they put up 70 points. You got 7 touchdowns between those 2 guys. Gronk just missed the bonus for the 100-yard game, and Brady was just shy of the 300-yard bonus too. So I mean, there's 70 points. They had to have had 60 or 70 points between the two of them. So, and you got 7 guys to go. That's an easy way to give yourself a chance to win, to make a big cash in that the one-day leagues.
Now, I would do one-day leagues, but I watched on HBO's Real Sports a fascinating look. The HBO Real Sports is really one of those sports shows that I've been watching now for the last 5 or 6 years that go in depth into their stories, and they did a story about guys who do one-day leagues, and they profiled some of the guys. The way they analyze these games, it is so far above a novice that I can see why they can say this, as opposed to maybe poker or blackjack or other games, is a game of skill.
Yeah.
Because these guys had literally sheets and the massive amount of information they collected and broke down to put down their roster was unbelievable to look at. And basically, I don't think I'd have a chance to beat 200,000 people to win the top prize. But the reason why it's so popular, they pay out what? I think this competition, 30,000 people will get at least some money.
No, it's something like
they're paying a big percentage.
Yeah, they're paying a huge percentage because all the teams that they get to take in. I think actually, if it's they're paying out $10 million, it's $20 a team, so that's 50,000 teams.
See,
maybe even more.
So
yeah,
have you had success? Have you had success on these one-day leagues?
No, you know what? Actually, this is the first year. I sort of kept my eye on it last year, and I was a little leery because I got a little bent over on the poker withdrawal process. So I was really leery about how they say, oh, we're paying out $2 billion this year. It's like how difficult is the process of pulling your money from one of these sites? But
Darren Rovell on Twitter, he's very active. He talks about the business side of sports. He said basically as part of their ad revenue now, because when you watch the games, FanDuel, DraftKings, because they have so much money.
DraftKings has even got a show, like they're sponsoring a show on ESPN. So I mean, how huge is the business now?
As part of their ad now, they kind of want to give updates as terms of their leagues and stuff like that in game. That's going to happen. And I was tweeting out. I tweeted out to Darren Rovell. I'm like, man, pretty soon. And don't put it past them because the significant jump in revenue that they're experiencing, they could pretty much buy a network. They could pretty much, in a couple of years, probably buy the NFL if they wanted to. And it's unbelievable with both companies. And when you hear one of the companies upgraded from their corporate office from the 9,000 square foot office to 42,000 square foot office. Gambling, baby. Everyone loves it.
Yeah.
And it's just, and the league has to side with them and keep them close in hand because they're fueling money. They're fueling viewers.
All the revenue.
They have to stick with
it.
it.
But yeah, it's just a good business model. So are we going to get to this
Yes, sir.
series or what?
Let's go. Tell me what you have the sheets in front of you based on the NFL, some stardom sit-ems. Let's start with the quarterbacks.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to agree. Of course, they had Tom Brady, that's pretty much a no-brainer. Like I said, the way Pittsburgh's defense is they're going to struggle. They got a young secondary. They're good at linebacker. Defensive line's good, but losing Dick LeBeau, he's been with them forever. Their defense is going to be a little challenged. So I would definitely have looked to start Brady if I had him this week. But the Monday night game, the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles, that's just going to be a shootout because Philadelphia loves to move the ball, and Atlanta's defense is also porous. So you can look for some big numbers from a lot of those guys. We'll get into some of the wide receivers and running backs in that matchup later. And then another, it's funny. I look at these sheets now, and this is exactly how I based my DraftKings team off of. I looked at the Monday night game and then the Sunday night game because the Sunday night game is the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys at Dallas. New York has had extremely good – they played extremely well down since the new stadium's been built. So Tony Romo and Eli Manning are both really good starts, I would think, just because the low-scoring side – I think the Giants had 14 points like 4 years ago, and those games have usually been in the upper 40s to mid-60s every contest. So you can't really go wrong there. What do you think? You looked at anything or no?
Right now, I'm glad to have you here. I'm pretty happy with my quarterbacks. I mean, I'm looking at the sheet. Obviously, yes, definitely. You go with the guys that are gonna start out the season well. Look at a guy like Stafford. Look at a guy like Tom Brady. I know a guy like Matt Ryan's on the stardom list. I like and definitely a guy like Andrew Luck. I'm hoping. I've based my team the last 2 years on Andrew Luck, and he's done well. He's done very well. And I'm not sure. What do you think about his opening day matchup versus Buffalo on the road?
You know what? It's funny you bring that up because I've actually got him on my team in our league. And I actually chose, which is sort of funny because the NFL's got Cam as a sit this week. I actually started Cam Newton over Andrew Luck this week, just this week because Buffalo's at home and their defense is very, very stout. Especially with Darius getting that payday, he's going to be pretty happy camper, so he's going to pour it on a little bit.
All right, so according to the NFL, who's on the stardom list?
The stardom list, according to the NFL, has got Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Sam Bradford, Tony Romo, and Eli Manning so far.
That's pretty fair.
So, and like I said, but I mean, if you look at the games, both those games are in domes, with Brady, Bradford, and Ryan, and Eli and Romo. So I would expect those games to be high scoring as well. So, plus the NFC East is defensively they're sort of soft. So that was one of my strategies going into the draft is to try and get as many players out of the NFC East as I could.
Now, what's my realistic expectation? In our league, I started Ben Roethlisberger, and it was a nice matchup because, he figured that New England's defense wasn't going to be that good, and it was a little bit slow. He did throw the pick, and he didn't have a touchdown, but it ended up, I look now, he got me the combination.
He had 350 yards and a touchdown. So.
Yeah, the combination of Ben and Antonio Brown got me 39 points with two players. That's pretty good.
That's realistically something you could probably look forward to the rest of the year because even when Le'Veon comes back, I don't see Ben's numbers dropping. They're not going to drop off the face of the earth. He's still going to put up. They're still going to be behind, so he's going to be throwing the ball. And receivers like Antonio Brown, Bryant when he comes back, and like I said earlier, Heath Miller is going to be one of those undervalued tight ends that could get you some really good production down the road.
Let's pick at my bench here in our league. I got Cutler, Colston, McFadden, Doug Baldwin. Ball, I guess, is, Monty Ball got cut, so I got to make a move with him. I got Teddy Bridgewater, too. And Kels, you think potentially there's a guy on there that I could maybe move to kind of improve probably in the I'm not really happy with having Fitzgerald.
The first three names you mentioned were pretty rough. You mentioned Cutler. Cutler's going to have a rough year. They're just in the I like what John Fox did, but let's be honest, Jay Cutler's no Peyton Manning, so he's not going to have as much success as he did with Peyton. So
McFadden and Colston? Colston seems like a guy that in the past was consistent, but New Orleans had Jimmy Graham, so he wouldn't get them. He'd get the yards, but wouldn't get the touchdowns.
Yeah, he wouldn't get the touchdowns. Their tight end Hill's gonna look to be sort of step in and take that same role. Plus, they got Brandon Cooks, so Marcus Colston's getting a little older. I'm expecting him to have a little bit of a down year this year. So, who was your starting tight end in our league?
I started I'm pretty happy. Jimmy Graham, Seattle at St. Louis, game 1.
Well, then I would guess that you could be able to move Travis Kelce, because Travis Kelce and Jeremy Maclin are sort of going to work pretty well together to give each other some good red zone looks. So if you're looking to move somebody out of your bench, I would go with Travis Kelce then.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with my matchup now. As a result of their performances, Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, I'm projected to win 111-104 versus Kurt. He's got Peyton Manning, Randall, Jay Randall. He's got Anquan Bolden, Jeremy Maclin, Julio Jones. Witten is and Seattle's defense at St. Louis. So he's got a chance to put up some big numbers.
Yeah,
my guys got to do well. I'm pretty happy with Alfred Morris, Jamal Charles, but my wide receivers are a little bit of a question mark with Fitzgerald and Vincent Jackson.
Yeah,
got to upgrade.
Unfortunately, Larry's been great his whole career, but he's been on the downswing past couple seasons. So, especially when they got John Brown and when Floyd comes back, he's definitely going to be. He'll be the second option, but I expect John Brown to overtake him sooner.
Are you playing Meringue to start? Week 1?
No, I'm playing my sister. They've got a freaking. I don't know how they got so stacked. They got.
Oh, you're a deuce for a deuce?
Yeah.
what kind of dumbass name is that?
You want to know what that is?
Tell me.
Seriously, it was a game. I don't know if you ever watched Tosh.0, but these idiots made up a game where they'd give a guy $2 if he reached his hand in a toilet and grabbed a turd out of the toilet. Hence, deuce for a deuce.
Oh my God! Well, you start off. You had Heath Miller. You got 8 points. You are up 8-0. You got Cam Newton, Hill, Stewart. You got You got Cam Newton, Jeremy Hill, Jonathan Stewart. You got Andre Johnson, Jarvis Landry, Deshaun Jackson, and Philadelphia's defense.
Yeah.
How you looking? How you looking? Are you going to tinker with that?
If I look at the team I'm going against, they've got Romo, who I like. They've got Frank Gore. Frank Gore is going to have he's going to have hard sledding against Buffalo. They've got Lacy. Eddie Lacy's a must start every week, so that's a bonus. Calvin's actually the only question I have on their wide receivers, because he's getting older. I don't know how durable he's going to be all season. They got Beckham, must start. Jordan Matthews is going to surprise everybody, I think. He had a pretty decent year last year, but I think with Maclin gone, he's really going to step up and take the reins of the wide receiver core. Kyle Rudolph, let's see if he can stay healthy. And then they got the Jets defense and Justin Tucker. So that game's going to be pretty interesting, I think. I'm still debating on whether I'm going to put I want to see what's going on with T.Y. before I make my final call on him. So
now, game 1, are you looking to keep your lineup the same, or are you going to tinker a little bit going to Sunday?
I'm keeping, like I said, I know T.Y.'s off the injury report right now, but like I said, that matchup it scares me. Buffalo's defense just looks like they're going to be really good this year. So I know you normally can't set your must starts, but I'm a gambler, so I like to play the matchups more than just go based off of my gut. So I'm more of the what we were talking about earlier is sabermetrics is what you're talking about. Yeah. Those guys compile, they take the weather into account. I mean, there's so many things that they take into account when they do these one-day drafts. It's pretty amazing. So
okay, now what I want to do is a teaser. I'm playing Cousin Adam, the jock, in the other league I'm in.
Okay.
And it's an important matchup. It's very tight.
Okay.
So I'll have you look at the matchup, and we'll do the stardom, sit him for running backs, and then I want to dial him up and see if it's possible to call him up and tell him how he's going to lose. Now, he actually he picked up a lot of guys that were suspended early, so his team name is Risk and Reward.
Yeah.
Because he's got a lot of guys that are suspended, but if they hit later in the season,
yeah, it's going to be huge.
He basically
does he have Foster?
He has to wait. He has to weather the first 4 games. Does he have Arian Foster? Yeah, he does. He's got Foster. He's got Le'Veon Bell, Martavius Bryant, and I probably have to take some heat because I did something. I think I made a bad impulsive move.
Uh-oh.
So in a draft, they drafted early before the 3rd preseason game. Okay, so before the 3rd preseason game, I got I had someone draft for me. So as a result of that, I had Martavius Bryant.
You can't ever have somebody draft for you, man. Come on.
I had to because they said it for a Sunday, and I was busy. I had family stuff to do, so I had Jason show up to the draft, a fantasy expert, and draft to my team. Adam was lenient and allowed that to happen, but now I know that Bryant got suspended, and you know what? I'm a guy that has been gotten off to slow starts. I dropped him.
No, hell, you can't.
I dropped him.
Man.
Listen. I'm not a guy that likes the Pittsburgh offense. It's just personally. I know that Antonio Brown's going to get a lot of the touches, and Bell's going to get a lot of the points. I don't think Bryant's going to do all that well. He's as soon as I dropped him, he had that big, huge pass in the preseason game. But
dude, you got to give me a call before you make a move like that, man. That's
Jock dropped Malcolm Floyd, and they're comparable to get him. So I picked up Floyd.
Okay, I can deal with that because, like you said, once Malcolm comes back from his hand injury, he's going to be a pretty big target for
exactly.
Palmer, so but
that's a trade off, and then my receivers are pretty decent on my team. I got Emmanuel Sanders, I got Amari Cooper, Jarvis Landry.
Okay,
so I would always pretty much slot Bryant lower and a bench to maybe certain matchups.
Who's your first receiver?
Emmanuel Sanders, Denver.
I would actually.
I like him.
Yeah, I know you like him, but like you said, I'm very interested to see how the offensive line holds up in Denver this year. So Peyton's Peyton. He's going to do his thing, but I don't know if it's going to be as spectacular as years past.
So the Doc dropping Bryant is a minor violation, not a big-time problem.
No, that's...
4 games is a lot in fantasy. There's only 13 weeks.
Okay, how many bench spots do you got? If you weren't planning on starting him anyways, all he's doing is sitting on your bench, so it's really not that detrimental to you, correct?
Yeah, 7 bench spots.
Okay, then he could easily take up a space. Who's the rest of your? I got to hear your bench now.
I got Malcolm Floyd. I had Bolden from New England, the running back, didn't do nothing. Jameis Winston, Johnson, the running D Johnson from Cleveland, Funchess from Carolina, Coleman, and the Bills defense. My bench is horrid.
You've got all them, and you drop Martavis Bryant. I'm a Florida State fan. Love Florida State. Love Jameis Winston. That kid is going to get destroyed down there behind that terrible, terrible offensive line. They've got like the worst ranked offensive line in the league right now. And you drop Martavis Bryant and keep Jameis Winston on your bench?
4 game suspension. I rank as being, very key because I want to get off to a 3-1 start. I want to be at least 3-1 and then headed to the play. Because in our league, you need about 7 to 8 wins out of 13 games.
Okay.
So 4 games is a long time. I'm not willing to wait. So I nowadays that's gonna be my strategy is if a guy is suspended 4 games, I don't want him on my fantasy team.
I'm gonna give you a little. Last year in my auction league, I drafted Odell Beckham, and I drafted him before I knew that he was. I knew he was injured. I didn't know the severity of it, so he was out for the first 5 weeks. You know what he did? Caught fire. You can't make gut reactions just because of. You have to look at the whole situation. You got to look at the big picture. If you're not going to deal with, if he was going to be your 4th receiver in your mind anyways, you've got to do a little gamesmanship and you got to block the rest of your league. You can't give somebody the opportunity to pick up a receiver of his caliber. Like you said, plus.
So you think he's going to have a big season this year?
He very well, like you said, that offense is going to score a lot of points because they're going to have to, because their defense is going to give up a lot of points.
Okay. So hit me up with who are the stardom sit-ems in the running back department, according to the NFL.
According to the NFL, which is pretty surprising, they've got Doug Martin versus Tennessee Titans. I like Doug's actually looked pretty well during the preseason, but once again, he's got the health concerns, so we'll have to wait and see about that. Latavius Murray against Cincinnati. That game should just be an absolute running fest. I'm surprised that the NFL didn't have Jeremy Hill on here. But another one I've been holding on to him, I've got him in all 4 of my leagues, is Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart, he's another one. If he can stay healthy, he's bound to have a great year. Like you said, D'Angelo's gone. There's really no competition behind him. Mike Tolbert's going to come in on 3rd down and catch some passes, but the other 2 are Andre Ellington versus New Orleans, which, well, New Orleans is... The NFC East and the NFC South are 2 of the weaker divisions in all of football, so it's safe to draft some guys against there. And then the final pick they got is Joseph Randle versus the Giants. JPP's out. We'll have to wait and see how the defensive line is gonna hold up against that mammoth offensive line. So...
Okay, and then, who are the sit-ems? Well, I agree with the first one, Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo.
Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus Buffalo. Frank Gore versus
Oh,
Frank's gonna have a good year, but you don't want to start. You're not gonna want to start anybody on the road at Buffalo. It's just not a good idea. They got Trey Mason against Seattle. I think that's like basically a no-brainer. I know Seattle's in a little bit of turmoil with their defense right now, but it just seems like that just seems like a no-brainer. You don't want to start anybody against them. Melvin Gordon versus Detroit. Everybody was worried about us losing Sue. I don't think the line's going to suffer nearly as much. Sue's a great player. He took up a lot of space, but they picked up Haloti Ngata. I think the run defense is still going to be there. So in the same game, they got Joique Bell versus San Diego. With Joique being out the whole preseason, being injured, that just seems like I'd rather take a chance on Amir Abdullah if I'm going to start anybody in that game for Detroit. And then Isaiah Crowell versus the Jets. Well, Bowles was a pretty good defensive coordinator for Arizona, so that seems like a pretty logical.
Yeah, no, I want to ask you about some running backs they're going to have potential, like a D'Angelo Williams, maybe like a Joique Bell and Amir Abdullah, guys that are part of like two-man systems. In fantasy, there's very few teams now in the league that just feature one running back, but there are teams out there that just feature one guy who gets all the carries, and Arian Foster, if he could ever stay healthy, was a guy like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he can't stay on the field. Now you got teams that are basically have a tandem. You got the guy, the smash mouth guy that gets you the tough yards, the guy that's going to bowl over the defense, and you got the speed guy that can take it to the house every play. And the Lions are a perfect example.
Yeah.
Would you rather have a Joique Bell, Amir Abdullah? Because now, at this point in time, we don't know who's going to get the bulk of the carries. But initially, the way you look at it, everyone kind of thinks Amir Abdullah is number one.
Yeah, I would. Joique's had a lot of problems holding onto the ball in recent years. So if he is still having problems holding onto the ball, I can totally see if Abdullah gets up to speed in the pass catching area that they're totally. I could totally see him overtaking Joique for the number one spot. It's really not I think that's why they spent a second round pick. They've been tinkering with the running game for the past few years and still haven't found anything that fits. I watched him in the preseason. His cuts are pretty gross. He made some just ridiculous moves in the first game. So if I'm going to start a Detroit running back, I'd probably go with him right now.
Okay. Now, see, I'd rather have a guy like a Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. I'd rather have a guy like Jamal Charles, guys that are going to get 20 to 25 carries. But the difficult side of that is those guys are going to get a lot of carries are potentially injury prone. Now, Marshawn Lynch, what's the ceiling on him this year? You think now, knowing that he's a guy that may be angry because he didn't get the ball last year in the Super Bowl, and this is a guy that's a beast. This is a guy that's going to get you tough yards, and he's going to get you the bulk of your fantasy points as a number one running back. Should I be okay with him? He's on my team. I got him and Frank Gore.
I'd be okay with him just because once you get in the goal line, they're 9 times out of 10. I don't know what the hell. I still don't understand that play call in the Super Bowl, but I mean, it is what it is. For the most part, Marshawn's going to get the ball once they get inside the 10. So I mean, you can count on him. I'm very interested to see how everything works out with the new center, because they traded Unger away for Jimmy Graham, so I didn't really see how their offensive line looked during the preseason.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you this, because I definitely have you here to break down the stardom systems, and as well as to kind of help get a strategy set up going for my fantasy league. So now the flex position. It's a very interesting position, one that can dictate whether you have success in your game. So week one in the flex position, I got Jarvis Landry, and he's got Smith from San Francisco. Now, I usually go.
I like your matchup better, but
yeah, I usually go with a wide receiver now at this point in time, because when you get down to the depth of the running backs by that point, those are the backup guys, the guys that you maybe hope to get that mop up touchdown, where the starter is getting all the yards and he just comes in and gets that quick 6 points. But for the last couple of years, I've used the flex spot to put in a wide receiver.
You've obviously just been drafting to fill the starting lineup then, because I'm in a Yahoo league and my first 3 picks were DeMarco Murray, Mark Ingram, and Jonathan Stewart. You want a running back in there because the running back's a little more likely to catch the ball too. So but that's just, it's an old school standard way of looking at things. You're not wrong in going in the wide receiver direction, because the way the league's going to passing now, it's very likely that some of these wide receivers are going to be putting up huge years. huge numbers as well. So
yeah, I wasn't gonna put in Bolden because obviously he got 1 point. He got 1 yard the whole game. I'm not gonna put in Tevin Coleman of Atlanta versus Philly. I think that's a matchup I could put in there potentially.
Oh, you know what? That kid, is he the starter? Everybody's raving about him right now, and it's very possible that he could have a.
Okay, it's your team: Jarvis Landry or Tevin Coleman.
Oof. Now, see, I've got Jarvis Landry, and they're playing against Washington. Washington's once again NFC East, so horrible D, but there's going to be so many points scored in the Philly Atlanta game.
Tough one, right? So we got to wait and see.
Yeah, that is a pretty tough one.
So that would be probably the message I send you on Sundays. Should I keep Jarvis Landry at playing at Washington or Tevin Coleman Atlanta? Is it home? I think home versus Philly.
Yeah.
Whew, tough one, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty.
Those are the questions you ask.
I'd probably lean towards Tevin right now.
Okay, interesting. Right now, yeah, because it could come down to one of those decisions. I have the Bills defense. And I'm not going to – I actually picked up a defense and put the Buffalo defense on the bench.
Really?
Yeah, Bengals at Oakland. I started the Bengals defense. Because, like I said, I have
all
luck.
You got to hope is that Latavius Murray doesn't go crazy. If Derek Carr's they've gone out to do some things in the wide receiver core to help him out. If he can make some better decisions, his stock should improve greatly, I would think, this year. I think he was – a little undervalued in the drafts, a lot of the fantasy drafts this year. So
okay, now is the time of the show where I have to flex the ego. I'm playing Cousin Adam. I'm projected to win by 2. So while I dial him up,
a big projection, bro.
No, that's not. What are you gonna do? While I dial him up, I'm going to
pay some bills.
I'm going to have you look at the matchup. I'm Team Paco's Habibis, and he's Team Risk and Reward. So I'm gonna dial him up, and then while we dial him up, I'm gonna I definitely have to trash talk Cousin Adam, you know.
Well, yeah.
Why wouldn't I?
So it's fantasy football. Why? I mean, that's why we do this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. I'm a peace-loving man.
You're a peace-loving man?
Yep.
Peace-loving guy? All right. Let's see if this thing works. I don't know. We're tinkering around. We have fun with this.
Yeah, I can hear.
You can hear dialing. Let's see if it answers. Let's see. Here's the matchup.
It sounds clear, man. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
All right, let's see.
Let's see if Cousin Adam
answers. Risk and Reward. Phillip Rivers versus Andrew Luck. Andre Ellington. I don't like Carlos Hyde. Frank Gore. Ugh. Marshawn, yeah. Oh, dude, you should.
Cousin Adam wouldn't answer because he knows he's going to get destroyed. I'm going to leave him a nice voicemail, too, then. He's probably like, who's calling me?
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. Is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To leave a callback number, press 5.
You just put his phone number over.
Oops. Cousin Adam. This is Doc from the Fantasy Nerds podcast recording. I got my bro Phil here. I figured out how to tinker with the cell phone, with the mixer, so I will announce that he's looked over the matchup, and I'm going to tell you, I'm fully confident I'm going to whoop your ass this week. I got Andrew Luck, the best quarterback. I got a great set of wide receivers. I got arguably the best running back out there. I'm going to crush you, bro. Sorry, I know you've kind of resigned to the fact that you have a team that's going to be around later in the year, but I don't care. This is week 1. And I'm going to take you down, brother. What's up with leaving your phone number on your voicemail? I have to cut that out. So, Phil, tell him what you think.
Matchup-wise, let's go position by position. I definitely give you the favor.
It's only got 2 minutes, bro. Just tell him he's going to get whooped.
He's probably going to lose.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, I don't like his running back matchups. I don't like Brandon Marshall. His flex position soft. The best matchup he's got is Des Bryant and Martellus Bennett, so he's in a little bit of, well.
All right, so check your voicemail and call the same number back. It's the podcast and see if this works. But this is the doc calling you on the podcast to tell you that you're going to get whooped, and I'm going to celebrate. And even though it's game 1 and you have a team that's all suspended, guys, I don't care. I still take joy in victories. Yes, sir. You think he'll call back?
No, he ain't going to call back. He's like, who the hell's calling me, man?
It's all good. Let's see. I'm hoping maybe potentially he does listen to that message and it came through clear and he does dial us back. That would be kind of fun. To wrap up, we got a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
Tell me what's up with the stardom situms for the wide receivers.
All right, let's get through this real quick. Like you said, they got number 1, they got Jordan Matthews versus Atlanta. That just seems like a no-brainer. A lot of people have been talking about this next guy, Devontae Adams, and they're playing Chicago. That should be a score fest. The Packers have basically owned Jay Cutler for the past few years, so Jarvis Landry. Oh, your guy made the start him, sit him. So that's another interesting. Allen Robinson versus. Oh man, wow, they have a lot of faith in Bortles down there. And then John Brown. Remember where I was talking about him earlier? Let's look. We're not going to worry about the sit-ems. I mean, Brandon Marshall versus Cleveland. Brandon Marshall's career is basically out to pasture now. Sammy Watkins versus the Colts. I like Tyrod Taylor, so that should be pretty interesting. Vincent Jackson versus the Titans. Said Tampa Bay's offensive line is pretty rough, so Jameis is going to have a rough time the first few games until he gets everything up to speed. Steve Smith versus Denver. Denver's secondary is pretty good. And then Torrey Smith, once again, I just said that your boys got him. So against Minnesota.
Now, hold on. I want to ask you this. A lot of people are starting to kind of buck the trend of drafting running back with their first 2 picks because it's a passing league. Yeah. There are a lot of guys, statistically, when you look at it, that are doing big things in the wide receiver position. I mean, now look at that. TJ Lang of Green Bay was all over Twitter last night going, I was laughed at for taking Gronk in the first round. And I'm now looking at it, you know what? He's got a draft position roughly in the late first round to second round, like first or second pick. And, but I would not laugh at anybody who took Gronk because the guy could potentially get more touchdowns than Calvin Johnson. Yeah. But he's a monster. But, is your draft strategy to go running back, or do you mix in maybe having the best wide receiver like a Calvin or a guy that's an Antonio Brown?
It all depends on league format for me. In a flex league, I'm going to probably try and grab 2 or 3 running backs right away. I know I'm going to be hurting at wide receiver, but there's still a bunch of talent out there that I can make something up. Now, this other league, I just did a draft on Monday on Labor Day, and I got Antonio Brown and Demaryius Thomas with my first 2 picks because I was picking 10th. I didn't like it. There was no value for me at the running back spot. And I believe Gronk actually went right in front of me, so it just made my decision super clear to go ahead and get Antonio and Demaryius. You just gotta strategize properly and be willing to adapt when you're in the draft room.
Okay. No, I've been traditional lately in that because roughly I'm usually drafting like 5 through 7. So you kind of usually with the first 5 you can get a decent running back. Yeah. But then when it comes back around, you potentially could
you should be going wide receiver nowadays. You basically want to start out if you're going to take a running back with your first pick, you want to look to get a wide receiver to sort of help you out. So.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. So your draft strategy kind of has been standard. Do you use this thing now called ADP where they look at kind of
draft? Yeah, I try and take everything into account, but like you said, you have to be able to adapt during the draft. I went into a draft where my buddy told me most of the guys in the draft take running backs the first and second round. So I went in there with a mindset of drafting running backs. Very last pick of the first round is Antonio Brown, and the first pick of the second round is Jeremy Hill. Then it goes Gronk, Dez Bryant, and Odell Beckham. So strategy basically went out the window. I still went with the running backs because of the flex position, and after you get past the top 7 receivers, everybody sort of starts to equal out. So
you've looked at the matchup for me, you feel comfortable that I'm pretty much likely more often than not going to win without maybe like one of those.
Yeah, I mean, there's always
crazy
a fluke
situations.
Yeah,
flukes. Right now, your matchup it was your sister. How you liking it? How you doing it?
I don't like it at all. I got a very rough matchup this first week. They've got a pretty well-rounded team from top to bottom. Like you said, they've got great running backs. The wide receiver position they're pretty set at. So. I'll be honest.
How mad are you? How mad should you be if you lose your first fantasy matchup?
No, I won't. I won't be too mad because I'm playing against a really good team. Okay. So when they've got Tony Romo, Gore, Lacey, Kelvin Johnson, Odell Beckham, and Jordan Matthew with Kyle Rudolph and the Jets defense, and then Tucker, I'm not going to be too mad about that because that team is going to put up a lot of points throughout the year.
Okay, so you say I get like very paranoid and I start I tinker a lot. So sometimes I've made I have made one really good move and that I can recall in probably the last 5 years. And it was about 4 years ago when Jordy Nelson had that first game. I had the first when Jordy Nelson started to emerge. I had the first pick in the waiver wire, and right away I started to recognize I think this guy can be good, and I picked him up on the waiver wire, and then he went on to have all those touchdowns. And I was like, wow! It took me to the playoffs and a playoff win. Now I still haven't won in that league. But it's super tough nowadays because everyone's paying attention.
Yeah,
you got to find the guy that doesn't have the blowout game the first game, doesn't get the 15 points and the 100 yards and the touchdown. You got to try to find a guy that's on the up and coming.
Yeah, he's just
That's my problem.
flying under the radar.
Besides some videos, I'm not good at finding up and comers.
Well, I took a flyer on James Jones. Just went back to Green Bay. I think that's going to pay huge dividends because he's been in the system. He was in the system for so long. He said Devontae's younger. He's probably going to be their number 2, but James Jones is a guy that you can go out and pick up and probably get a pretty good value out of him if you're looking for, if you're hurting at wide receiver.
Okay, now what do you think about one other wide receiver, Ruben Randall from the Giants? I know that Victor Cruz is the guy. Donald, the tight end, is going to get some action.
No,
but
Victor Cruz is Odell Beckham's the guy.
Yeah.
Larry Donald's going to get his looks. Ruben Randall's right on the cusp of boomer bust.
There are some people that are calling Odell Beckham a bust this year.
No, we don't see talent come into the league like that kid's got. He has some intangibles that there's things that he does that you just can't teach. I really can't see him having a fall off. I expect him to be competing for Calvin's record for receiving yards in a year or two, to be honest.
You feel like the Lions really passed on a guy that's going to be potentially a big time, potentially a Hall of Famer.
That's what the Lions do.
That's what the Lions do. Ooh, I have a rule though. No, I don't have. For the last couple of years, no Lions on my team equals success. So if you have a Lion on your team, you just better have Stafford, and that's really about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's too tough, too inconsistent.
Yeah.
Fantasy-wise, at least.
Calvin's been, until last year, Calvin was a pretty safe bet. More than a safe bet. He was awesome, but like you said, he's getting a little older now. We're going to have to keep an eye on that situation. So,
all right, hit me up with the stardom sit-ems for the tight ends.
For the tight ends, all right, we got Martellus Bennett versus Green Bay, Jason Witten versus the Giants, Jordan Cameron versus Washington, Kyle Rudolph versus the Niners, and Tyler Eifert versus Oakland. If I had to go with anybody out of that whole field, I would take Jordan Cameron versus Washington. That situation's just a debacle, so I would look for him to have some big numbers.
Now, I want to ask you about tight ends. The marquee move that was made in the offseason was Jimmy Graham going to Seattle.
Yeah.
Does he become the safety blanket over there? Is he a guy that potentially could cause some damage fantasy-wise?
He's not going to have nearly the impact that he had when he was with New Orleans. Russell Wilson.
Why didn't they let him go?
Because they couldn't pay him
money.
It was all a money situation, especially after everything went down the way it did last year with him. He couldn't get a deal. So said Russell Wilson's a very dynamic player. He's gonna make a lot of people miss with his feet. Jimmy's gonna get his catches, but I don't know if it's gonna be near the level that he was at with New Orleans. So,
okay. And who are the players that we think and the NFL thinks are sit-ems?
Vernon Davis. I don't know what happened. He was on the rise 2 years ago and then just fell off the map. Owen Daniels is playing against his old team in the Baltimore Ravens. Colby Fleener, another Andy guy being sad against the Buffalo Bills. Jordan Reed versus the Dolphins, and then Eric Ebron versus San Diego.
No. Don't tell me Ebron made the sit-em list.
Of course. How?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the secondary's decent in San Diego. It's just, you know what sucks? You watch a game, and that's what sucks about being a Lions fan. And I'm a crazy Lions fan. I'm all about football. I read everything, about Michigan State and the Detroit Lions. So you're sitting there, you're watching Tom Brady just dissect the defense with Gronk. And I can't be like, wow, this is a great performance. My mind goes to, gosh darn it, why can't Ebron be like this? I know it takes time to develop, but, you brought up the name. He's a sit-em for week 1. You're in agreements with that. You think Ebron will develop into potentially a guy that can be a 10 to 12-point guy production in fantasy every week?
Well, let's look at it this way.
Because right now, he's like a 3-point guy, 3 to 6-point guy every week.
Yeah, if that, let's look at it this way. If the Lions were super confident in him, would they have gone out and gotten Tim Wright? I mean, I can't buy into him.
10th pick.
We got very lucky with Ziggy. We hit a home run with Ziggy in the draft, okay? The Lions have been trying to hit these home runs with these, freakish athletes. Ebron on paper had all the measurements to be huge, but we seen what we got out of him last year. I don't know. I'm not buying into it. I need to see some production.
Oh, disappointing. when you think about it, you got to take your time and think. But he was drafted with the 10th pick, and the players after him.
There was so
Odell
much,
Beckham.
Yeah, if there was a thing on Facebook about the Lions' last 10 drafts and who they could have had in the first 3 years of the draft, and it would send them to the Super Bowl. You can't.
You just got to hope that maybe this year there'll be signs. So the kind of the number people are thinking about is maybe potentially
10
what?
wins.
No, I'm not talking about wins. I'm talking about production for Ebron, like potentially 5 to 7 touchdowns, maybe 500 yards.
That sounds reasonable, but can he lock down his spot at tight end?
I just think that you know what? Maybe
Stonehands
because Levy went down. Yeah, Levy went down. Maybe Ebron will step up and be the guy that just has 2 or 3 touchdowns. Why not? Why not Ebron? You know, he's been having a decent training camp, decent preseason. But I just don't want to see him drop a big pass because if you see him drop a pass, you're gonna know, my soda or alcoholic beverage is gonna be like dropped on the floor with some superlatives, as you say. All right, so we've given you the stardom situms. We've given you kind of a breakdown and look at our initial game 1 experiences. I'm likely to win. Phil is likely to struggle against his opening week matchup. You could see that Doc maybe made some impulsive moves. Don't do that after week 1. But what's a realistic good start in fantasy? Like, have you had a situation where you started the season like 0-3 or maybe 1-4, where you came back and put a run together and made the playoffs? You have to have a good start because you have to get,
if you don't get out of the gate good, you're looking up at everybody. Last year I started out 6-0. I lost in week 7 because I think I was playing against Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning just went bonkers all year last year. So. But you have to get out to a good start. If you don't get out to a good start, you're looking, and you're going to be in pretty rough shape.
Now, guys like me that are super busy, that don't get a chance to kind of break down, history of matchups, So we tend to kind of lean on the ESPN projections or the NFL projections. And recently, I can tell you, because I lean on them, when you do a lot of things and you have a family, it's hard to kind of dig in. So I've been using them. They're not that good. No. So how do you go about preparing to know? Because fantasy's easy. Because fantasy football really is easy. What makes it difficult is the freaking bench. Because if you have a guy on your bench that goes off for 30 points and you lose by 5, and you had a guy who gets a 2 and doesn't do nothing, that's what pisses you off. What's the best way for the novice, the guy out there that's just kind of a little bit busy, that potentially is researching the player, to kind of make his own projections? What do you do?
I use both of them as guidelines, but then you got to sort of go with feel. You got to look at the matchups, look at the situation, observe everybody who's most likely gonna get the ball. Like we said with Pittsburgh, you're never gonna sit Antonio Brown. Never. I don't care who his matchups against. You're never gonna sit him. So that's someone pretty easy. It's once you get in the later rounds with your draft, who do you got to fill in? Like you said, you got Jarvis Landry as your flex position. Jarvis Landry should be starting in probably about 85% or higher of all fantasy leagues, I would think. Ryan Tannehill is been steadily on the incline, so just take the rankings, take your gut. You got to sort of mix it together.
How's your gut been the last couple? Have you had situations notably where you left a guy who was super productive on the bench and it came back to bite you in the ass?
My biggest friend and enemy is Deshaun Jackson.
Oh yeah,
he's the ultimate boom bust guy. I can't sit him. I can't ever sit him.
1 or 25, right?
Yeah, it's basically what he does. Like he's good. If he catches one, it's usually for 60 yards and a touchdown. So you're already into pay dirt there. But he drives me nuts.
Okay, I wish you good luck in your opening week.
You too, bro. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. And this is another good podcast recording. You gave a lot of good insight regarding the stardom situms. We gave some insight. You gave me a little bit of help as to kind of how to tinker with my lineup, and you made me feel good because I did. You didn't make me feel horrible for dropping Martavius Bryant. I did kind of feel bad, but
you should feel bad.
No, because
you should feel bad.
I think Malcolm Floyd can do some damage.
Malcolm Floyd absolutely. Once his hand's healed, he absolutely is going to do a lot of damage.
You think he'll do good versus Detroit? Is he hurt? You said
no. Yeah, he's on pace to. They were looking at him being on pace to start. So in week 1. So
yeah. What are you gonna do? All right, you did a good job, bro.
Thanks, bro.
You made your debut the podcast week. You made yourself on 2 podcasts.
I know.
We'll probably have you back on the Fantasy Nerds again for sure. We'll see your tales and some mistakes you've made, and I'm sure Jason, when he listens to it, will say you did a good job. Not bad.
Well, thanks, bro. I appreciate coming on. And world, give us a listen. This guy's really busting his ass trying to get this going. Let's get him some followers on Twitter, get him some listens and likes. Do what we can to help him out.
Yeah, this has been another episode of the Fantasy Nerds. Check back every Friday. Give you all the great news, and hopefully Jason and the crew will be back. Yo, Jason, what? Why are you hollering with me, bro? Just because you're on the radio? What? Come in and do the podcast. Check you guys later.
I like kicker.
Put him on the board. Haush Mazzoli. Got it. Championship.